Quilter's Attic in Pine Bush, New York, and today I wanted to tell you about this fun, quick project called the QuiltSmart Smart Bag. It's not a new project, but it sure is fun, quick, and easy. You can take 2 fat quarters and turn them into this very cute little tote bag. Right here, we have a bag. It is a little Christmassy. This is the 1 fat quarter we used. You can see that it has a directional print on it, and that works very nicely with this project. You don't have to worry about which way you turn things. It's very, very simple. The bag is fully lined, which makes it reversible. It's a very, very great little project. We've made hundreds of these over the years, and we finally decided that it's time to do a video on how easy they are to do. To do this project, you're going to need a few things. The first thing you're going to need is the pattern. And in the package, you have a pattern with 2 pieces of interfacing, and that will make 2 different bags. When you open your package, you're going to have the pattern with the picture on the front. On the inside, you'll have directions. On the back, it talks about fabric requirements. So this piece of paper right here is very, very important. It gives you all the details to how to make this bag. You will also receive 2 pieces of interfacing. Each bag is constructed on interfacing, so there's no measuring, there's no marking, there's no nothing. We're going to fuse it to the interfacing and follow the line. So it's so super duper simple. Your first one will take a little bit of time because you're learning as you go, but your second, third, and 25th are all going to go so super quick and fun. If you noticed on my bag, there are handles that are made out of the same fabric that the bag is made out of, and those handles are turned. So you'll see later on in the video what we use to turn them. You can use the fast turn, and I will demo the tools, fast turn, as well as this other tube turner. So they both work great. As I'm using them, I'll talk about the features of both that I like, and you decide which one works best for you. Anything you want to purchase, we have available on our website at QuiltersAttic.com. So I do hope you purchase things you need to make, and you also subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're enjoying this video. Now that I've talked about what we need and what you'll need, let's get started. When you open your package and you pull out your interfacing, note that there are 2 in there. If they're still in one big long piece, you'll just cut in the empty section between all the markings. They may already be pre-cut for you. Once you've made the 2 that come in the package, these can be purchased separately. You don't need to keep purchasing the instructions. So those are available singly once you make your first 2. But if you look with the interfacing, there's a smooth side and there's a bumpy side. Now the bumpy side is where we're going to place and fuse all the fabric. The smooth side has all the words that we can read that says, leave open to turn, fold here, place handles here. So it gives us everything we need right on here, but the instructions give us a few more pictures. The first thing I'm going to do is look on my interfacing. One side of the interfacing at the bottom says leave open to turn. I want that to be my lining because I'd rather have where I had to hand stitch or just machine stitch that opening close. I'd rather that be on the inside. So I'm going to first do the opposite of that leave open to turn. I'm going to lay it on my ironing board with the bumpy side facing up, the fusible, and I'm going to then take my outside fabric. This part may be a little hard or tricky for you to see, but you might be able to see it says place top of your outer fabric here. So that's the fabric you want on the outside, and it says to place it right side up. So I'm looking at these 2 little arrows right here, and I'm going to line my fabric up there. I've chosen a directional fabric just to prove to you that it can work, and I'm going to place the top. If you look at this little bunny rabbit right here, he is facing right side up. I'm going to place my cut edge right up to that line right there. I've got my fabric lined up to this line right here. I'm beyond the dashed line at the end, and I'm beyond the dashed line at this edge. So now I'm going to go ahead and fuse that down. If you've worked with fusibles before, you know that sometimes a little bit of water is helpful. So I do have steam in my iron. I have water in my iron. Be careful as you're ironing. You don't iron beyond this edge and start fusing your iron to your interfacing. That's the last thing we need. You'll also notice that I am not going super fast. I'm just moving nice and slow. I'm letting the water in my iron Melt the glue, activate the glue, and bring it up into the back of my fabric to fuse it. Because I'm working in front of you right here and not at my big ironing board, I don't have the luxury of ironing it all at once. So I didn't get this edge right here. So I will now just go over that edge. So it would be helpful if you worked on your regular size ironing board. I am just about finished. Now you'll notice I'm going very careful along the top edge. If you would prefer to use a Teflon pressing sheet or something to protect your iron, that's more than fine. I just didn't want that clearing the visibility for you today. Now that I've fused the first side, the outside of the bag, I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to do the same thing with my lining fabric. It tells you to place the top of your lining fabric here right along this line. Now I did not trim my fabrics. You can see these are right how I got them from the store. I'm going to just, if it's not perfectly lined up to the line and you get a little extra up in this blank area here, that's fine. That area is really just for the bulk from the handles. And if a little bit of your fabric goes up there, not a problem. Fuse this down in the same manner. And there you have it. Everything is fused and there is a small gap, about 1/2 inch of interfacing showing, but all our fabric is fused. Now that that's done, we're ready to move to step 4, which is cutting the handles off the bag, and we'll start constructing those. Now that everything's fused, I've placed the fabric and the interfacing with the interfacing up. This way I can see the lines where I need to cut. I am going to cut on this dotted line with the scissors, this dotted line with scissors, and that last dotted line. You can use scissors or you can use your rotary cutter, which is what I am going to do. Now that I've cut that main piece apart, I just have my 2 handles here. I'm going to cut them now as well. The directions say you can leave this unit together and sew it with the opposite side, the lining fabric. But for today's video, I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. There's one, and we're going to get rid of all this little extra right here. My writing is in brown. We have seen over the years brown writing and blue writing. So if your ink is printed a little differently, don't worry one bit. You're not going to see it anyway. Now I have my 2 handles from my outside fabric. I'm going to do the same thing to get my 2 handles from my inside fabric. Again, you can see the 3 lines with scissors right here. We are going to cut on those lines. Again, lining up with the dotted line that has a pair of scissors on it, we're going to cut there. At the end, I left the excess here. That will get trimmed off later once I sew all the handles together. Now that I've cut the bottom handles off, I am going to go around the entire outside of the bag and cut the dotted lines on the other side. So the handles were cut off either end on the lining side and on the outside. And now we're going to cut along the sides of the bag. Now that I have all 4 of my handles cut, a lining and an outside for each handle, I'm going to take 2 opposite fabrics, a lining and an outside fabric. I'm going to place them right sides together. Because I decided to leave the extra till I was all done, I'm just lining up the dashed line here, dashed line here. Doesn't have to be anything perfect or crazy, just get them close. You can choose to pin this side, or you can choose to just eyeball it. I will put in a few pins. I typically don't put too many, but I'll just put one at the beginning, one in the middle, one at the end. If you use Wonder Clips, those work perfect as well. So I have it pinned, my edges are lined up. You can use a 1/4-inch foot and just do 1/4-inch seam all the way down both sides, 2 long sides, or you can use an open toe foot and sew right on those lines, whichever works for you. I have opted to use my open toe foot and I'm going to sew right on these lines. I'm also going to go to my sewing machine and shorten my stitch length by 1 click. If you have the option for needle down, go ahead and engage the needle down so the needle stops down every time. Couple stitches forward, couple stitches backwards, and then all the way down. If you are not pinning, just make sure these 2 edges stay fairly even all the way. Back stitch at the opposite end and resist the thought of stitching across here to get to the other side. That will just close up the opening. We won't be able to turn it right side out. Go ahead and cut. Come on around, do the same thing on the opposite side. Few stitches forward, few stitches backwards, and then all the way down using either your 1/4-inch foot or sewing right on the line. I did not pin this side because that side is already secure and things aren't going to shift. Now that those are done, we're going to repeat with our other 2 handles. Now that the tubes are made, all sewn together, 2 sides of both, we are just going to trim the end where those dotted lines are, both ends, both handles. We're going to do that real quick, and then we're going to turn them. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned there's 2 different ways to turn the handles, and good for us, we have 2 handles to turn, so I'm going to show you both methods. The first method I'm going to show you is the one that I have used for a very long time. It is called the fast turn. Now, the fast turn is a tube, and we're going to slide it inside our handle, and you can't lose this. The downside to this is you can't lose this little wand right here. So I'm going to take my tube, take my handle, and I'm going to slide my handle right onto the tube. I'm covering up the end of the tube with some of the excess handle. I don't pull the handle all the way down so I can see the top of the tube. When I get close to the edge, I just fold it over. And then I'm going to take my little magic wand and I'm going to slide it in the bottom of the tube, come all the way to the other side. When I feel resistance, I turn it like I would a corkscrew, and you may have just seen that pop out right there. There it is. Now we're gently pulling this back. And as I pull, you can see I'm lifting the handle up and I'm pulling this magic wand down here. And it's coming out of the bottom end, all turned. When it's off, I just need to uncorkscrew this so it comes out of the fabric. And there it is. So I have my tube, my wand, and here is my handle. Turned just as simply as that. We're going to get a nice press in a few moments, but we're going to turn the other handle, and then you're going to decide which method you like better. The next method is using this tool right here, which is the Easy Point and Turner. It's a very similar principle, just slightly different, and I'll show you how to do that one. It's going to be the same thing. We're taking our handle, our inside out handle, we're sliding it onto the bigger edge, the rounded edge, not the edge with the point. And we're going to pull this on. Again, when we get to the end, we don't want to see the end. We're going to cover the end. We're going to close like we would a pair of scissors, close it. And then we're going to turn using the same principle. We're going to pull this back over itself. My suggestion is to just grab a little bit at the end and don't take too much, because if you take too much, it's hard to get started. Which is what just happened to me. But once you get started, it goes very nicely. And we're just pulling, we're just pulling, we're just pulling. And eventually we see our handle here. We can now take it off and just pull it straight down. So either method works great. The fast turn I've been using forever, so I'm a little more comfortable with that, but this is super easy. And the benefit to this one is you can see how skinny this is. We could do skinnier handles than we have here. So this is a little more versatile because again, you have just a skinny area that we can slide up into very skinny, almost spaghetti strap size. Where this, we're a little more limited in the size of the tube we can turn. So either method, fantastic. You pick whichever's easier for you and you order your fast turn or your easy point and turner. Again, anything can be ordered at quiltersaddict.com. Now that they are both turned, we have to press them because they don't look so pretty right now. We can press them evenly. So we have an even amount of blue and an even amount of green on our handles. We can also press them so they are in half. And if you see right now, I have half blue, half green, half blue, half green. So make your decision on which way you want to press. So here is your handle. Again, decide if you want to press it in the middle or press it one way for each. I like to press so my front is on one side, my lining is on the other. So I'm kind of just going to grab that between my fingers and press that edge. You can go all the way down and press one side and then do the other, or try to do them both at the same time. That's all a matter of preference. But what I can tell you, it's not much fun. So to me, this is the most tedious part of the entire project. But at least we made turning the handles nice and easy for you. Back in the day when I first learned to sew, I was using a safety pin and putting it in, and oh my, not much fun. Almost done. All right, now that one handle's done, we get to do it all over again. I always find that getting started is kind of the worst. As much as I hate pressing the handles like that, it only took 2 or 3 minutes and we're all done. If you want, you can leave them as they are, or you can go and stitch real close to the edge, a narrow top stitch on either side, so these handles don't move around on you. I've decided that I am going to top stitch close to the edge on these. I'm going to remove my open toe foot, and I'm using the FOF Creative 3.0, and that has what is called a narrow edge foot. It is similar to a stitch in the ditch foot where it has a black blade or silver, depending on the machine, but a blade going down the center That's going to ride right at the edge of my fabric like I would with a 1/4 inch foot. And what I'm going to do is I am going to, if you watch my needle, I'm going to zoom in. If you watch my needle a little bit, it is moving this way. I'm going to follow the blade along the edge of my fabric, and the needle is going to make a very narrow top stitch. Before I start, I always like to slide my thread underneath. I had shortened my stitch length per the instructions to make my handle. I just lengthened it a bit to do my top stitch. I lengthened it back to a 2.5. You can see how quickly I can do this top stitch because all I'm doing is watching my fabric right along that guide right there. Can you see that top stitch? It's real nice and even right along the edge. We're going to repeat that on the other side. If you're following along in your directions, we did step 7, which was turning the handles and pressing them. This step right here, the extra top stitch, that is an extra step that is not in your pattern. If it's something you'd like to do, just do that when you complete step 7, which was turning and pressing the handles. If you top stitch one handle, make sure you top stitch the other. Before I forget, I'm going to go back and I'm going to shorten my stitch length back to where it suggests. I'm going to put my needle back in the center position. And I'm going to put the proper foot back on. I like to do all those things before I forget. Now that I've fused my fabric to my interfacing and I've made my handles, I'm ready for step 8, which is placing the handles where they belong, placing a few pins, and then stitching across one side to create part of the bag. Now that I'm ready to place my handles, I'm looking at my interfacing. I've got it right side facing up here. I could see all my fabric, and I have little gridded areas. I have 2 right here for one set of handles, 2 right here for the other set of handles. I want to place the raw edges up to the edge of the fabric, or if you can see, there's a very, very faint dotted line going down the center, and it says first fold line. You're going to line your fabric up, your handle fabric to the edge of this fabric, or it can go up a little further if you want, but do not go beyond that first fold line down here. So right to the edge of the fabric or up just to that little line. You're going to place some pins. Now we are going to be sewing across the top here. So the pins can't go here. You'll try to sew through them. The heads should not be right here. You're going to try to sew through it. If you look at the picture on your pattern, it tells you to place the head of the pin down towards the bottom of the handle here. You may notice that I have my green fabric here. That means when I come around, my green fabric still has to be here. My handle can't be twisted at all. And the reason I have the green fabric showing, when we lift this up, we'll have our outside fabric next to our outside fabric and our lining fabric next to our lining. If you would like to switch them around and have them opposite, that is your choice. But whatever you do to one, do to the other. You can see I have 1 pin right there, and 1 is all you need. If you someone who likes to pin a lot, by all means, go ahead and place 2, and I'll do that here just to show you. And what this will do is it will keep it secure and preventing it from doing this. Okay. So since I did 2 there, I better do 2 here. I'm going to do the exact same thing on my next one. I'm going to either place it like I did before to the edge or pull it in a smidge. But again, do not go beyond that little dotted line right there. 2 pins are fine. 1 to 2 pins, just keep them away from the edge here where we plan to sew. You can see I've backed them off and the heads of my pins are away from this area where we will sew. Again, when you place this handle here, do not twist it around. And that completes step 8. We're going to move on to step number 9, which says to fold your interfacing in half. So now I'm lifting this up, I'm folding, and you can see that it says first fold line, and there's a very little dotted line. That's the line we were looking at from the other side when we placed our handles. You're going to fold on that dotted line as best that you can. Now we're making a tote bag. We are not making a garment that has to fit. So do your best to be perfect, but do not make yourself crazy. Right on that first fold line, place a pin. And here I do, as much as I'm not loving pinning, I do pin this. Once we finish pinning, folding and pinning along that line, you're now going to stitch all the way across, sew this solid line from start to finish, making sure you tie off at the beginning and at the end. I've got my stitch length back down to a 2.0. I'm going to sew all the way across on this solid line, couple stitches forward, couple stitches backwards, and then all the way down the line. I can hear where the handles are just to make myself feel more comfortable. I'm going to stitch over them forward and backward. You can see these pins were way over here. They're the pins we put in to hold our handles, and they're way out of the way, so I don't even have to worry about them at all. Coming up to another handle, I'm going to go forward and backward over that end. When I get to the other edge of the handle, I'm going to go backwards over that. Now that it is all sewn, we're going to open it up, remove the pins, and we're going to fold on the second fold line. So far it's very easy. We sewed our handles and we sewed this top seam. Removing the pins. Now that we've removed all the pins, we are going to press the seam towards the outer fabric. I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to let my iron do the work. Let my iron do the work of pressing that seam real nice towards the outer fabric. Step 10 says to fold along the second fold line. I've got my bag all laid out. Now I'm going to fold the opposite direction, and this seam should line up. But the first thing we're going to do is fold right on the line, this dotted line where it says second fold line. I am going to place a few pins just so this line stays pretty close to where I want it. I may need to move those pins, but at least I'm going to get them there to start. So I have one, I have two, and I'm going to put a third one on the far end. My handles are going to want to be a pain. If you can kind of fold them a little bit so they lie a little flatter, then you're going to pin all the way around. At this short little bottom edge, I've got a solid line. I'm going to pin all the way across. I'm going to flip to the other short end on the other side, and you'll notice it says leave open to turn. flatten out that handle. Now you might have noticed I have one handle going one way, one the other, and that's just to ease some of the bulk as I'm working right now. Got to line up these bottom edges. If you need to take this out, by all means, go ahead. Make sure you see this leave open to turn section. If you have this upside down, you won't see it. You're going to sew right through that open section and you'll not be able to turn your bag right side out. So don't do that. Make sure you see that leave open to turn. And if you follow the fabric placement correctly, this will be on your lining fabric. Now that I've pinned this short edge and the other short edge, I'm going to pin the entire long edge now. But before I pin all the way down, I'm going to line up this center seam. Right now, it's off about 1/16 of an inch, not the end of the world, but I'm going to do my best to get it 100% perfect. And then we'll hope for the best as we sew. So I've got that all pinned. Now I'm going to put a couple pins here on the outer fabric and a couple pins on the lining fabric. And you can see it kind of is bubbling right here, and it's only because those handles are in the way, making us a little crazy. So we're just going to smooth it out. Now that it's all pinned, we're going to go ahead and sew all the way around, just leaving this section open that says leave open to turn. Do not forget to do that. If you follow along in the instructions, this is step 10, there is some information about pulling these edges up now and create a boxed corner on the outside. We are following the traditional directions, which have you make the box corner so you don't see any extra fabric. It just sits flat and it's all finished here. So we are following the directions to give us the edge that looks just like this. You can choose to follow other directions if you like when you're making yours. I like to start on the lining side, so right off the bat, I take care of that leave open to turn so I don't forget. I'm going to start off at the end, so forward and backwards. I've got my needle down. It will stop. I can pull my pin out. I'm going to go to that arrow, back stitch, and now I'm going to cut. I'm going to then jump ahead to that other arrow. Back stitch there. I'm going to sew right to where the line is for me to turn. I like to do a back stitch there as well. Now I've got my line going this way. I'm going to rotate and zip all the way up that long side. But before I zip up, couple stitches forward, couple stitches backwards. Pulling my pins out as I go. I like to back stitch right over that heavy center seam. Now that I'm to my other corner, I'm going to back stitched. I'm going to turn, couple forward, couple backward. And these pins I'm using are called magic pins, and you can see how easy they are to get a handle on and pull out as you're going. At the end, back stitch and cut. That completed step 10. We're going to do what we need to do for step 11, and we're going to turn it right side out. Step 11 is about boxing the corners at the bottom. If you look right here on the one that's completed, this bottom seam lines right up to the side seam, and then there's a stitch across it. To do that, QuiltSmart's given us some pre-printed lines. We're going to take this seam, pull the two linings apart, and line it up with this seam. So I've got my hand down here. I've got my hand up here, kind of grab and pull them apart. that when I pull this apart, it should line up straight across, but this is not at all straight. This comes down, this goes up. That means I haven't done a good job doing that yet. So I am going to continue to work to get this seam lined up better with this seam. And you can do it by feel. You can feel the lumps and bumps, or if you'd like, you can stick a pin straight through here and hope it comes out right there. This is looking a lot better. Do you see how this line is now straight across? You're in business. Just place a pin right there and sew right across. Okay, now that was the first corner. Two of the corners will look just like this. I'm going to go do the opposite corner. Perfect. Looks good. These two are ready to sew. Before we sew those, we're going to complete the other two. They're just slightly different. I've got a seam right here, but I have no seam right here. I have that second fold line, dotted line. So now I'm lining up this seam with this dotted line. Again, pull the one side, pull the other side, pull them apart. And now I can't feel as easily, but I can try my best to feel, but we are going to stick the pin in there and hope it comes out on the second fold line. It does. That's excellent. So now we're just going to pin like so. And I'm going to now sew on all four of those lines. This may feel a little awkward, and that's because it is a tiny bit awkward because nothing wants to lay flat. But we want it to come to a nice angle. You don't want it to be all smushed when we start. So nice, that pin is right smack in my way. I'm going to grab, not take that out, but grab another one. Pin off that line. I don't know why I pinned right on it. That was silly. Now I'm going to sew all the way across. If you don't want to box the bottoms and you just want to leave square ends, that's fine. But I'm going to go a couple forward, a couple backwards. The pin is off to the side, so it is not in my way. And I'm going to sew down. And as a matter of fact, it was a little in my way. And that's what it is supposed to look like. Just a seam line straight across where that brown or that printed line was. Continue on. It may be easier to pin and sew, pin and sew, pin and sew instead of pinning all four at once. But I wanted to do it repetitively so you saw all the pinning and got it stuck in your head real good. So now I'm ready to sew. And our final one, and we are done. I zoomed in a little on that. You can see we're going to sew straight across that line. And now we are just about finished. It doesn't look so hot yet, but we're almost there. And you're going to say, wow, in just a sec. I'm going to just open where there was the leave open to turn. If your hand is small enough to stick inside, go ahead, stick it in. I'm not going to do that. I've just got my fingers inside. I'm going to push the bottom all the way up. I don't want to put my hand in because I'm afraid I may not get it out. But I'm sticking my hand sticking the other hand, pushing everything all the way to my fingers that are inside. And I'm just gently going to pull it up out. Super duper easy. It's coming. You see it? You've got some handles to come through. You've got all kinds of stuff coming through, but it only takes a few seconds. Now this handle ended up on the wrong side. So did that one. Everything's all kaflooey. No problem. We'll just flip this where it goes. Flip that where it goes. And we're going to stuff this inside just so you see how it all comes together. But then we have to pull it out and sew up that opening. So I'm just sticking the inside in. And a little quick press, and there you have it. Nice, quick little smart bag. You can, if you'd like, top stitch around here. You can fold these handles down. What I think is cute is if you fold the handles down, at the top down, pull this up. You can run a top stitch all the way around. You can sew some buttons here. Either way, anything's cute. You can leave it like this. It'd be a cute little purse if you sewed buttons on or top stitch, or you can leave it like that. Cute little Easter bag. You can make these for any season, any holiday, you know, Christmas, 4th of July, whatever you need something for. So they are very, very adorable. They're quick, they're easy. If you enjoyed making this project, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch what else we have. There is also another video on how to make the bottle bag, and that is another QuiltSmart project. Very, very similar. There's only one handle. There's a tie on it, and when you open that tie, you will get a bottle of wine. So it doesn't have to be wine, could be goodies. You could have little treats in there, a little bag with chocolates, but it does have the little tie on it, and it is traditionally made for a wine bottle, and that's the QuiltSmart bottle bag. So check out our other YouTube video on making the QuiltSmart bottle bag. I hope you enjoyed. Again, please subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. If you want to sew this little opening by hand, you are more than welcome to do that. If you prefer to sew by machine, I just kind of give a little tug where I have a seam sewn, then my opening kind of falls into place where it should. I either place a few wonder clips or some of my magic pins to hold that opening closed. You know, if you think you might want to do this bag reversible where you'll use it inside outside, you'll keep flipping them, I would recommend a hand stitch. You won't see it. I don't think I will ever use the green as my outside. I think the Easter will always be the outside. Again, I'm just going to machine stitch right down. I'm going to do this the same way that I top stitched my handles, which means I'm going to switch presser feet and move my needle over a little bit. Just like I did before with the top stitching of the handles, I'm going to place my narrow edge foot that has the guide there. I'm going to move my needle over. You can kind of see the needle moving to one side. And get that thread out of the way. I'm going to take the opening here where it's open and just machine stitch. And now again, I'm following the guide right to the edge of my fabric and my needle's off to the sides. So I'm not even really paying attention to where the needle's going, but I'm just confident in what my machine's doing for me. Now that I'm at the end, I'm going to back stitch. And there I have my little closure. You'll never see it when it's on the inside. You may have noticed right from the get-go, I chose green thread, and that's exactly why right there. So you'd never see it.